Hello, today we're going to be talking about IMAPS and DNS by Julian. The agenda today will be IMAPS, IMAPS configured using Dovecode for Linux, and IMAPS hardening. Also a couple things, technical details about IMAPS. We'll also have DNS, domain name system. We'll have DNS technical details and DNS configured using IIS on Windows. The Linux configuration of DNS using bind and DNS hardening recommendations for servers. So we'll start off with IMAPS. So first, IMAP is Internet Message Access Protocol. That is what IMAP is. That's what it stands for. IMAPS, what we're focused on today, is Internet Message Access Protocol Secure. So basically, IMAP is the unsecure version. IMAPS is the secure version, basically. So IMAPS protocol is typically used for securely receiving emails. IMAPS allows users to access emails from any device, whether it's tablet, laptop, whatever the user wants to access emails from, and IMAPS acts as an intermediary between email server and client. Unlike POP3, emails cannot be accessed offline. So no service or internet, you will not be able to access your emails while off-grid. Unlike POP3, it does not auto-delete emails from servers. So in POP3, one of the functions was that it auto-deletes emails. In IMAPS, it does not auto-delete emails. In order for this to happen, you would have to manually delete them. IMAPS uses SSL encryption, and the two ports are port 143 and port 993. So port 143 is typically IMAP, not the secure version, and it is typically not encrypted. Meanwhile, port 993 is a secure port, so it is typically uses encryption, whether it be SSL or TLS encryption. Here we have IMAPS installation and configuration. First, you use this command to install Dovecode. So you would install it's installing Dovecode POP3 and IMAP, and then you have to define the protocols that you want to use. In this case, you would just use IMAP and POP3, and then allow it to listen to IPv4 and IPv6 using this command. And also you want to configure your SSL TLS encryption in order to make it the secure version of IMAP, so IMAPS. And here we have IMAPS hardening. So first of all, we have to disable the unencrypted IMAP. So IMAP is run on the one port, and that port is unencrypted. So in order to make it secure, you would want to disable the port and only use the port, I believe it was 993, with TLS or SSL authentication or encryption. This makes sure that your email server is more secure. My next hardening recommendation would be to use only renewed SSL and TLS certificates. This goes pretty much hand in hand with keeping your systems updated and patched. Updates help keep your systems patched to the newest patch. Keeps problems from occurring. Keeps people from exploiting certain problems. So same thing with SSL, TLS certificates. They expire, so they stop working. That makes your computer more vulnerable, your system, your server more vulnerable. So my recommendation would be to make sure that your certificates, your encryption certificates, authentication certificates are always renewed, and to continuously renew them. Whitelist, my next recommendation would be to whitelist IP addresses that are allowed to connect. So this allows certain IP addresses to connect. I believe blacklisting is making sure that certain IP addresses cannot connect, so you can also do that. But whitelisting would allow only certain addresses, IP addresses, to connect. Next we have scan, email content scan for malintent emails. So using an email content scan on our server, on our email server, would detect the majority, I won't say all, but a majority of the emails that might not have good intent, might have malware, might have certain things, bad links, anything like that, spam, phishing, stuff like that. And it would filter out the majority of these problems. My last IMAPS hardening recommendation would be to configure IMAPS settings in order to provide best security for your email server. So an IMAP setting for one server might not be the same as the other, so you would want to go in and manually configure these settings to provide best security for you, to give you the best security for your needs. Next we have DNS. So DNS stands for Domain Name System. DNS translates domain names to IP addresses. So this allows people to access websites like ESPN.com or other websites like .org or any of that sort of stuff. This DNS helps eliminate the need for humans to memorize IP addresses, and it also stores domain names to IP addresses, which helps into doing things like DNS translate, which lets you access websites. The components of DNS or some components are DNS resolver and different types of servers. Some examples would be root server, TLD servers for .com, .org, etc. Next we have DNS lookup, which is for obtaining a domain name or IP address. We also have DNS message format, which is consisted of header section, flag field, question selection, and answer section. The port for DNS would be 53. UDP 53 is the default port for queries or zone transfers. Next we have DNS continued. This is sort of installation. First for IIS, you would want to install IIS and then use DNS to place the domain name on the server and make sure to register that name. Then we will want to configure the settings for DNS on the domain control panel, and also configure IIS headers for DNS on using the IIS manager tool. For Windows we would use IIS, and for Linux we would use Bind. This is an open source and is very popular with DNS for Linux. Some components would be name server, lightweight resolver, and name server tools like NSLOOKUP, host, dig, and RNDC. With Bind, there's less overhead, there's instant setup, backup built in, and more capabilities like DNS load balancing. For the hardening recommendations, I would recommend configuring strong authentication, so nobody can not access your server, nobody can wrongfully access your server. Next, we have to configure the DNS properly for desired settings to boost security. So much like the other one I said, to make sure to use desired settings for your specific server, for your specific situation, to boost your security, which would mean disabling certain things, enabling certain things. This goes with my next thing, which would say restrict access to certain things, or restrict certain things. Things like access restriction or access controls, implementing these things, and implementing restrict access to special functions of DNS. Other restrictions could be zone transfer restrictions. Another recommendation would be to use rate limiting to lower the chances of a DDoS attack. This can be very good for a server. If an attacker tries to use a DDoS attack, the chances of it being effective using rate limiting would be greatly lower. And my last recommendation would be to use contents filtering to make sure to filter mal content from the server. Lastly, we have my references.